Good evening. Thank you for joining us this afternoon to learn some more about the new PFAS removal rebate program. We're really privileged that you took the time out to join us for this. First, I want to get started with some introductions. So here is the PFAS rebate team. There are 4 of us that are going to be assisting you through this process. I am Amy Rousseau, and I'm the PFAS response coordinator for the MTBE Remediation Bureau and the entire Department of Environmental Services agency. Then we have Paige Ralph. She's a program planner. In this process, she is the one that will be receiving the applications and doing an initial administrative completeness check. And then they get passed on to John Pasquale. He will be doing a technical review of all of your applications and sending them on for payment, where they go to Joshua Whipple, who will then be passing these on to accounting to get you your payment and your check in the mail. We also have a couple other DES employees with us tonight, Jeff Martz and Andrew Fuller. They'll be joining us later tonight in the question portion if there's any questions that they can help answer. First, I want to start with some housekeeping items. This meeting is being recorded. We will supply the recording after this meeting for all who want to refer back to it and any who were not able to attend tonight. All of the attendees right now have been muted upon entry. We will allow you to answer your question live later on, and we have the ability to unmute you at that time, so you can do so. If you're having any technical difficulties with the GoToWebinar platform, please call Paige. Her email and phone number are here. I do want to let you know that if you are a call-in participant tonight, you're in listen-only mode, so we don't have a way for you to communicate with us, and you won't be able to ask questions later on. So if that's something that you would like to do, I encourage you to get onto the GoToWebinar platform from a computer or a phone so that you may be able to ask questions live. I've included some handouts on your dashboard. You'll see almost close to the bottom that there's a handout section. There are 4 handouts in there. One of these is the FAQ document. One is a guidance on how to register as a vendor with the state. One will be the application in Word document form. And then I also included a PDF of the slides tonight that have live links in them for all the links that I'm going to show you, so you can refer to those later. All right. We are going to entertain questions at the end of the presentation. Again, call-in participants are in listen-only mode and cannot participate. We're going to ask that you use the question function on your dashboard to type your name and be added to a queue that we will go through one by one at the end. So I'm going to go through this twice for you tonight. I'm going to go through it at the beginning and at the end so that you all have a chance to get on that list. So the question function you'll see on the dashboard. So over here, you'll see this gray line that says questions. If you open that up by hitting this little white triangle, this box will come down below. And in this box where it says enter a question for staff, we would like you to type your first and last name and the town that you live in. We are asking that you do not type your question in this box because we're going to allow you to ask it later. And then go ahead and hit the send button. Again, if you have any problems with this and you need assistance, please contact Paige. Her contact information is on the bottom of the slide again. And again, show this at the end to kind of walk you through it. But at any time during the presentation, you can pop your name into the question box and Josh will add you to the list. Our agenda for tonight, I'm going to try and keep this under 1 hour so that it doesn't go too long. We will answer questions until the last question is asked, so we want to try and keep this as short for you as possible. I'm going to give a program overview, so I'll go over the program, and then I'm going to move on to some remedial options, treatment options, and service connection directions. And then I'm going to walk you through the application process live, and I'll show you how to do that. And then we may take a 5-minute break depending on how long this goes, and then we will turn it over to questions at the end. All right, so let's with a program overview. So what is the program? So this is a rebate program, meaning that all the work must be completed, treatment installed, or a service connection completed prior to applying for the program. So everything, you must have everything we need for complete application prior to applying. The program is a one-time rebate of up to $5,000 for the installation of PFAS treatment. And if you are fortunate enough to have a water main that runs in front of your home, it's up to a $10,000 rebate for a service connection to a public water system. On the bottom of the slide here, you'll see a link that brings you to the main page for the rebate program. And again, these live links are in the PDF, in the handouts. I did check them all, so they should all work perfectly for you. We have had a lot of questions in the past week and a half since the program went live about funding. It was mentioned in our correspondence to you that is a first come, first serve program. Basically what that means is we are going to review and process the applications in the order in which we receive them. We have $20 million to fund this program, which allows us to assist approximately 3,500 households. At this time, we know of approximately 1,100 due to our sampling that have an exceedance of PFAS. And if you received correspondence from us, then you are included in that 1,100 count. So at this time, we have more funding than we know of need. So we are not anticipating that we are going to run out of funds in the near future. And so for all of those that have concerns about getting their application in quickly and having to have a complete application before you do so, I want to let you know that at this point, please do not worry about that and take your time with the application and get us everything we need. And there is funding there to get you your rebate.
Hey, Amy.
So who can, yes.
Can I just interject? I just know that there's a lot of people with questions already on the list.
Okay.
I'm going to ask that maybe they wait to add their name to the queue after your presentation. Their questions may be answered in what you're going to provide. So I'm thinking that maybe adding their names towards the end of the presentation if their questions haven't been answered by then. Just a suggestion.
Sounds like a good suggestion. So, as Paige suggested, if you might want to wait until the whole presentation to see if your question is answered, please do so. All right, so who can apply to the program? So those that are living in a single family home or even a multi-unit residence or an apartment complex that are on a private well are eligible to apply. The second is an installation contractor. So the people or the contractor that you employ to install your treatment has the ability under this program to apply on your behalf. That is something you'll have to set up with your contractor. At this point, we are not sure of which contractors might be offering this service and who are not. So it's something to ask when you make that phone call. For everyone that's already installed treatment and has already paid their contractor, that option does not apply for them. This rebate can only be applied once per residential address. And so we're asking if you're a renter that you coordinate with the owner or landlord of your property to make sure that only one of you is applying for the rebate, because if you spend money and the owner has then gone out and already applied, you would not be able to apply a second time. So it's easier if you coordinate with the owner or landlord beforehand to make sure that whoever's doing the installation and paying for it is the one that is applying for the rebate. For this program, you do have to have an exceedance of one of the 4 PFAS ambient groundwater quality standards. And those are shown here on this slide. So we have PFOA at 12 parts per trillion, PFOS at 15 parts per trillion, PFHXS at 18 parts per trillion, and PFNA at 11 parts per trillion. And what these numbers mean, those are the standards. So you have to have an exceedance of this number. So if you are exactly at the number, so say for PFOA, or if your result is 12, then you are not eligible for the program because you do not exceed the 12. You have to have a number higher than the numbers you see here. You do only need, though, to have one of them. You don't have to have all 4 of them. So if you exceed PFOA and you don't exceed the other 3, that still makes you eligible for the program. There are some restrictions that I want to go through. The major one here is that you may not already have a third party offering you bottled water, treatment, or a service connection, meaning that someone is not already paying for these things for you. So if you have bought your own bottled water, you're installing your own treatment and paying for it, then you're eligible. But if someone else, a third party, is doing that for you, then you are not eligible because someone else is already supplying you with a remedy. This rebate program will not cover any expenses associated with the operation and maintenance of the treatment system. It is strictly just for the initial install. And then thirdly, this is a retroactive program back to September 30th, 2019. So any installs that happened prior to that date are not eligible for a rebate. We have had a fair amount of questions, and I just want to give you some clarifications based on those questions to the program. I did mention earlier that it is a one-time rebate per household, and I bring that up again because there have been some questions about whether you can split your request for your rebate. So maybe come in and for treatment and get, let's first say, for example, a $3,000 rebate, and then you decide to do a service connection or the opportunity to do a service connection comes up later. The question was, can they then come in a second time and get the remainder of that up to $10,000 rebate? That is not allowed. It is a one-time rebate. So you really have to assess your options prior to applying. A household that's on a public water system is not eligible. A public water system is regulated by the state of New Hampshire, and through that regulation, they are required to sample and treat for PFAS if there is a violation or an exceedance. So they are already getting a remedy to their drinking water just by being a public water system. The program will not cover both the installation of a point of use, like an under the kitchen sink, and a point of entry system, which would be a whole house in your basement. It will only cover one or the other. The program will allow, however, the reimbursement of more than one point of use. So if you wanted to install a point of use in your kitchen and a point of use in your bathroom, the rebate would cover both of those, up to the $5,000. A big question we've been getting is about the sampling. So we are requiring a post sample to ensure that the treatment that you install is working properly. The cost of a post sample will be covered by the rebate program. We do recognize that there are some people out there that did not have NHDES sample their well. They sampled on their own. So we will also cover the cost of the pre-sample as well. So those are both reimbursable costs. I do want to note here with the post sample that the DES is not going out to do post samples for people at this time. We are still trying to process and sample households that have not had their well sampled the first time, and so that's where we're putting our resources to. I do recommend that if you're looking for a post sample, that you either reach out to your treatment installer. They could come back and do it for you, and if they say that they cannot, there is a list of labs on our website that you can call to assist you with a sample. At the bottom of this slide, you'll see I put the FAQ document, and I know we've had some issues with the links to the FAQ document. I ensured that this one is working and it is the right one. There are some other questions and answers in there, so I recommend that you refer to that document and read through it before reaching out and asking questions outside of this webinar. Now I'd just like to go through some remedial options with you, just so you know what you have for treatment options. So as I had mentioned, there's 2 forms of treatment that you can install for the removal of PFAS. We have our point of use, which, like I said, is typically an under the kitchen sink kind of treatment. There are some vendors that are able to install the basement and plumb them up to your kitchen sink, which also allows them to plumb it into their refrigerator if you have a refrigerator that dispenses water as well. Typically, these are reverse osmosis systems. They are on the cheaper side of treatment, and the operation and maintenance cost of these is cheaper as well. So point of entry is, like I had mentioned, a whole house system. It treats all the water coming into your home and is typically set up in your basement. And this is more commonly carbon, but there are some resins out there that will remove PFAS as well. We don't see them very often in a residential setting, but I know they're out there and I know there are people using them. Point of entry treatment is more expensive to install. It is also more expensive to maintain. The cost of changing out carbon and resins every 1 to 2 years can be quite costly compared to just a filter that goes into a reverse osmosis treatment. Some other considerations when you're looking at treatment is the point of use removes other contaminants, for example, arsenic. So if you happen to have arsenic and PFAS contamination, you would be able to remove both of those with a reverse osmosis system. Carbon does not do that, but it does remove some other naturally occurring contaminants. And there are some complications with carbon with these other contaminants that I'll go through in the next slide. So there are some links at the bottom of this slide. One of them is a fact sheet and the other just goes to a web page, but they give you some more information on your options for and walk you through what they mean. So I encourage you to go to those if you have further questions about what is the right treatment for you. I will tell you that PFAS is an ingestion issue, so our concern is with your drinking water and your cooking water, not necessarily the water you bathe in or use to brush your teeth. So a point of use is an acceptable technology to remove PFAS from your water, but we do recognize that there are those that their comfort level lies more with a whole house treatment to treat all their water, and so that's why this rebate program is up to $5,000 to help you cover the cost of whatever treatment you choose. All right. So I want to go through some of these other contaminants that are out there. So I know when the DES sampled most people's wells, we also did a modified standard analysis for that. And so most of you probably have an iron and manganese result from that testing. However, I know that we did not do radon. So as I go through this, it's something to think about whether you need to do some additional testing to take these things into consideration. And if you need help figuring all that out, we can walk you through that outside of this webinar. So with radon, it is recommended that greater than 4,000 picocuries per liter that you treat for radon. This one is a little complicated because carbon is a treatment for PFAS, but it is also a treatment for carbon. I mean, carbon is also a treatment for radon, excuse me. So it will remove both contaminants from your water. The issue with radon and the concern that we have is that radon left unchecked in a carbon canister can turn radioactive through time. So basically what that means is that it's going to shorten the life of the carbon that you have for PFAS removal. And you really have to be mindful of the change out of your carbon if you're not going to pre-treat for radon. So you don't necessarily have to do the pre-treatment for radon, but again, like I said, it will shorten the life of your carbon. You will have to change it out more frequently, which then leads to greater operation and maintenance costs down the road. Iron and manganese, you'll see two levels here, one for iron and one for manganese. These are the secondary maximum contaminant levels for these two contaminants. And these numbers are the aesthetic level. So iron and manganese are not a health issue at these levels, but this is where they start to present themselves in your faucets. So like if you have an iron issue and you start to see like rust color in your toilets, that's iron coming out of your water. Manganese presents itself more as like a black slime. But But if you can see these in your water, then you can just assume that they are accumulating in your carbon tank, and they can foul the carbon or the resins that you're trying to use to filter out the PFAS. And so I did put here, I present these two together because iron and manganese are commonly treated together with one treatment technology. So I mentioned both of these. One, because you want to keep these in mind when you're installing a system for PFAS, that these can cause some complications with carbon. And two, the rebate will cover the cost of these treatments at these levels that are listed here on this slide, up to the $5,000. So installing these treatments could very easily bring you over the $5,000 rebate cost, but we will only reimburse you up to the $5,000. I also do want to mention that these concerns do not exist with the reverse osmosis. This is just with the carbon treatment, so the whole house treatment. Right. So again, if you're fortunate enough to have a water main go in front of your house, there is the option of a service connection into a public water system. We've had a couple of people call about this, and my advice to you is that if you are in this situation, that you contact the utility that services your area, that services that water main in front of your home, and talk to them. One, to see if it is available for you to connect into, and two, to get a cost from them of what that would be to do so. You will also have to keep in mind that it's not just as easy as like turning the water on. You'll need a contractor to install the service line from the curb stop at the road to your home. And you might need an additional contractor, like a plumber, to make that connection from your basement to your plumbing in your house, and then also disconnecting from the well that you're using. So those are some considerations to take into account when you're looking at a service connection. I did also want to mention here that you might want to consider decommissioning your well at this time. We will cover the cost of the decommissioning of your well. And basically what that means is you're hiring a well contractor to come and fill in your well and remove the cap, and it would be like it was never there. This is not a requirement of the rebate program. So you can keep your well. You could plumb it for irrigation if you wanted, but we're just having you consider it because the cost of decommissioning a well can be, thousands of dollars, and it's something that we could cover under the rebate program for you if you chose to do so. All right, now I'm going to walk you through the application process. So, and I assume that most of you, this is probably going to be the part you're here for. So I wanted to start with the vendor registration. I would say 95% of the calls that we have been getting in the past week and a half have to do with this vendor registration. So I want to kind of explain it to you and walk you through the application process. This registration is required for every applicant that's coming in to get a rebate. This is the mechanism that the state uses to pay you that rebate. So it is a 6-digit number that we are going to need, and we're going to need it on the application when you apply. So that would be part of your complete application. So you can do this at any time. So if you haven't installed treatment yet, or you haven't gone through your service connection yet, you can do this today so that you have that 6-digit number and you're all ready to go when you're ready to apply. So the link at the bottom of this slide goes to a guidance document that we have. We didn't put it together ourselves. That will walk you through how to fill out the online registration. Over here, this picture is also a live link that goes right to the web page. But I am going to bring up the guidance document. Right. And I'm just going to walk you through the guidance document to go through how to fill this out. I do also want to say I have talked to some people that have received payment from the state in the past. If you're in that boat and you have received payment, you probably already have a vendor ID. And if that's the case, you don't need to reapply for a second one. You already have a number, and that 6-digit number is what you would use for this program as well. All right, so here, this is the guidance document. You will see right here, this is the link that brings you to this web page right here. Paige or Josh, if you can't see my cursor, just let me know, but if you can, you don't have to say anything at all. So when you get to this web page, you want to click right here where it says online vendor registration. And that is going to bring you to this web page right here. Once you get to this web page, you're going to want to click on new vendor right up here in this little blue light blue banner. Once you do that, it'll bring you to the vendor registration form. And this is where a lot of confusion starts to come in. So this form is built and looks like it's for businesses, but it is required for us to have. So we're going to walk you through kind of how to fill this out so that you don't have, so don't worry about that it says business. You are in the right place. So on this first part right here, you'll see these first 3 red stars. You're going to fill your name in each of these boxes. So it'll be the same thing in each box, just your name. And then right here on this red star, so everything with a red star, you're going to have to fill out. This is going to be your social security number. We know there is some concern with people about giving the social security number, but I can tell you that that number does not come here to the DES. We do not see it. We do not have it on file. It only goes to the Department of Administrative Services for the purpose of this registration and for a W-9. So again, we don't see that number here. You want to move down, fill out all these red starred fields, which is your address, your contact information, your email address. And I do want to point out down here on the bottom, it says remit information. Is the business purchasing address the same as the remit address? This does not have a red star on it, but you will need to answer this question to move further with the application. So we are assuming that the answer to that question is yes. So you check yes and move on to the next screen. So from here on out, the guidance kind of highlights things for you. So wherever is highlighted yellow in this guidance document, that's what you want to check. So type of business, you're going to check individual. For principal activity, you're going to check other provider. And then this one here, optional information, you can just leave that blank and then move down to the comment box. So this is an important step right here. The Department of Administrative Services has asked us to have applicants type in this box, PFAS rebate program. So that way they will know that when a registration comes through, that it's for this program. So we ask that you do that. And then continue down again, clicking where all the yellow highlights are. So then this has been the most confusing page for people. So this page asks you to check one of these categories. You do not have to do this. So you can just ignore the questions on this box, simply go to the continue button at the bottom and move on to the next part of the form. And that's here where you will certify your information and finish your registration. So if you've gone through the whole process and completed it, you will then get this screen right here that says, congratulations, your registration has been submitted for processing and approval. And I believe you will receive an email notification that the process is complete as well. So if you don't receive that email, something may have gone wrong throughout the registration. So look for that email after you're complete. It does say in the guidance that the process takes 1 to 2 business days to complete a vendor code. So that means for you to get that 6-digit number. I will tell you that they have had a heavy load with this rebate program, and that time frame has been extended out to 3 to 5 days. So I would say if you haven't gotten it within 3 days, just sit tight, it's coming. If it's taking like closer to 2 weeks, maybe reach out to us and we can try and figure out what's going on. But for the most part right now, I would say they have an uptake in registrations, and it's just taking them a little bit longer to get to it. All right, so that's the vendor registration. All right, I'm going in the wrong direction. All right, so how do you apply? So you have your registration ID number. you have the install done or the service connection, we have different ways for you to get us an application. So we start with the online. This is an online form that we've prepared. It is our preferred method of you to apply, but we do understand that this isn't always the best way for you to do it, so we've given you options. If you click on this link here, it will bring you to the online application, which I will show you in a minute. But there is an option for you to mail the application into us, a paper application. You can drive it into us and hand deliver it to the front desk, or you can email an electronic version of it. I do want to note here that a separate application will be required for each requested rebate. So if you are a landlord or an owner of multiple properties and you do an install in more than one, we do need to apply separately for each address. We could not figure out a way to make the application more friendly for you to only do it on one application. So the best and easiest way for everybody, honestly, is to do it separately. All right, so when you go to the online form page, this is the landing page. This is what you're going to see. And I'm going to bring this up in a little bit and walk through it with you. Just wanted you to get some eyes on it. It's going to give you some instructions. But if you scroll all the way to the bottom of this page, you're going to get to these two boxes that you see right here. So this box on the left is begin form entry. That's for the online application. If you want to do it online, you click on that box and it starts to walk you through the process. If online's not for you, you can click on the download mail-in form and you can download the application, where then you can either, it's a Word document, so you can fill it out on your computer and submit it to us electronically with all of your attachments, or you can print it out, fill it out, and mail it in paper copy. There are people that won't even get to this step in the process. We do understand that. So if a paper copy is what you need, we ask that you either email the PFAS email, which is PFAS Rebate Program at des.nh.gov, which will be on the last slide, or call us and we will mail you a paper application. Right. Some required documentation that we need to come along with the completed application form are listed here. So first being your analytical results showing that you have an exceedance of one or more of the 4 PFAS AGQSs. So if the DES sampled your well, we already have those results here, and you do not need to resubmit them to us. We're asking that you don't do that. So if you can't find your results and you know that we did it, we have them here. We can supply them to you if you want them for your records, but we do have them here, so you don't have to ask for them. If you sampled on your own or had someone else besides us sample your well, you will need to include those results with your application. Secondly, we are asking for your sales receipts and invoices, paid invoices, but we are asking that it is an itemized cost breakdown from the treatment installers. And the reason for this is we need to go through and determine what is eligible under the PFAS program. So if you choose to have extra treatment installed that isn't PFAS related, and that's something we wouldn't cover, we need it all itemized so that we can break that down and give you an appropriate rebate. Specifications. So this one we have recently been talking. So we were asking for specification sheets for any treatment installed or the media installed, the media being either carbon or resins for the whole house treatment. So at this point, it's not applicable if you're doing a service connection, so you do not have to worry about that. But if they're available to you and you can get them to us, we are asking that you supply them. If you cannot, then we are asking, and it's on the application, that you give us the make and model of the equipment and the carbon or resin media, and we can try and look it up ourselves. So we don't want this to hold up your application, because we do recognize that this might be a difficult step for some people. But if it is available and you can get it from your treatment installer, we ask that you submit that to us as well. We are also asking for photo documentation of the installation of your treatment and the service connection. And so this is simply just one photo snapshot of under your sink POU or the canisters down in your basement. For a service connection, it could be the disconnect of your well or where your water is coming into your home, maybe even your service meter. So, like I said, one photo, just attach that so we can see that it's been installed. And then lastly, we have the post-treatment sample. So we went over this a little bit. I will say there have been some people that have had their treatment sampled post-treatment by the DES. If that's the case, then you don't have to resubmit that to us, same as your initial analytical results. But like I said earlier, the DES is not doing further post-sampling for the purpose of this rebate program so that we can use our resources elsewhere. So in that case, we would need you to submit your post results along with everything else. So these things are what make up a complete application. You need all these 6 things as well as your vendor ID before you can apply for the program. If we do not receive all of these things, we're going to consider it an incomplete application and kick it back to you. We'll reach out to you and let you know what's missing. But I will tell you, if we have to do that, it's going to delay your payment. So we're asking that you focus on a complete application. All right. Now I am going to attempt to walk you through the online application. All right, so here's that landing page that I showed you earlier. Like I said, there is a set of directions here that go through some of what I've already talked about, goes through some of what's in the frequently asked questions, tells you how to apply, and then it brings you to these 2 buttons we discussed. So first, I'm going to show you what happens if you download the mail-in form. So you click on this button, it's going to download this document for you. So this is the application itself. This is the paper copy. All the directions that you see on the landing page, you see here on the paper copy. Let me make this just a little bit smaller. And then as you scroll down, all the restrictions we talked about are here. And then this brings you to the part that you need to fill out. All right, so you have your applicant information, and then it goes on from there. Your treatment site information, your PFAS results, your water treatment installation, and so on and so forth. We are asking again for a complete application that you fill in all these grayed-in boxes. When you get down to the required documentation, you check that you have attached all of these things. We're looking for check marks in these boxes. And then when you get to the confirmations, we are looking for a check on each one of these questions to confirm all of these statements. And then if you're the owner or occupant, we are asking again that you read through all of these and check them. The terms and conditions are the last thing in the application, and then you'll sign, print, and date. So this would be for your electronic version or your paper copy. Section 8 here is if a vendor is going to apply in your place. So your treatment installer has agreed to apply for the rebate for you, meaning we pay them directly. They would also need to fill out this section. But if you are applying on your own behalf, Section 8 does not need to be filled out. So that is what the paper form will look like. All right, we're going to go back now to the online form. You're going to hit begin form entry. And this is going to pop up, a sign in. So you will have to register for an account to fill out the online form. I don't want this to be daunting or to stop you from doing so. There are some benefits to having an account and to doing it online that I'm going to go through later. So I am going to log in with my account and I will walk through this with you. Let's hope I type that in right. All right, so once you have your login, you'll log in with your username and password. I suggest you write them down so that you don't forget them, because you will be able to come back into this to look at the status of your application after the fact. So it's important to keep those at your fingertips throughout the process. So as we go through, the first question you're going to see is a third party is supplying bottled water, a point of entry, point of use, or service connection to the property. This means someone else besides you is giving you safe drinking water in some fashion. So if you say yes to this question, this little red box is going to pop up, basically saying that if you are receiving this from a third party, you are not eligible for the rebate program. So hopefully most of you will be able to answer no to this question. And then you're going to move on and you're going to fill out all of the red starred boxes. All right, so this is all your contact information. And then you're going to fill out your mailing address. You can hit validate address. I don't believe it requires you to, but it just validates that. And I did not put in my state, so you make sure you put in your state, validate address. So that was successful. Is this property address the same as the mailing address? For most people that own their home, this will be yes. If you are an owner of multiple properties or a landlord and you're not an occupant of that property, then this could be no. If you hit yes, it just moves you to the next question. If you hit no, it will ask you what the physical location of the treatment installation was. So you need to add that address for us and validate it. For today, though, I'm just going to go with yes. Then we are asking who the applicant is. Are you the owner? Are you the tenant? Or are you a contracted installer? By filling out each of these, it guides you as to what the rest of the form is going to be. And so it will take out things you don't have to answer, and it will keep things that you do. So the online form actually limits what you have to read and fill out just by the answers that you give it. I'm going to go with owner in this case. Here is where you'll see your vendor code. So the vendor code is also on the paper application. It's very important that you fill this out because without it, we're going to consider it not a complete application. So once you have all that, you hit the next section. And it's going to guide you to PFAS concentrations. So it's going to give you the guidance of what the AGQSs are. So you can look at your results and see if you are eligible. We are asking here who sampled your well. And again, by answering this, it's going to filter out certain things that you do or do not have to answer later on. So I am going to go with NHDES because I believe at this point that's going to be the majority of you. And then move it to the next section. All right, we're going to move on to water treatment installation. So we're asking for the date of the install. Again, this can be anywhere back to September 30th, 2019. And then we're asking what type of treatment you installed or if it was a service connection. So if you click on point of use, it's going to ask you for the filter manufacturer and the model number. If you click on point of entry, it's going to ask for the filter media. And in this case, it's either probably going to be carbon or some sort of resin. But like I said earlier, the main treatment that they're using in residential settings right now is carbon. So and then if it's a service connection, we're asking who the water provider is. So whether that be, for example, it could be Merrimack Village District, Pennachuck, Manchester Waterworks, that's what we're looking for. I'm going to go with point of entry and type in carbon. And then at this stage, we are asking who took your post sample. So I'm going to go with owner occupant because that, I think at this point, is going to be the majority of you. And then you're going to move on to the next section. You'll notice up here, when you hit next section, it automatically saves your progress. So if you forget to hit this button, no worries. Okay. This is probably going to be the most difficult part of the application. This is where you're going to upload your required documentation. So we need something to be uploaded in each of these boxes. So in this first box right here, you'll see sales receipt or invoices with an itemized cost breakdown of all the charges. So you can either drag and drop them into here or choose a file, but you need to upload an electronic version here for us. It is set up where you can upload more than one document. So if you have multiple invoices from different contractors, like say a plumber, the lab for your post-treatment sample, they can all be uploaded in this one box here for your sales, receipts, and invoices. The next box, this is showing the specification sheets. So this box does not necessarily have to be filled out if you don't have them to supply to. We took that restriction off, but if you do have them, this is where you would upload them here. And then in this box here, you're going to put in your photo documentation. We only need one photo, but it will accept more than one. And then because we chose other or owner for the post-treatment sample, this is asking you to then put in your analytical results here. So you'll notice that it did not ask for your first sample showing the exceedance because we chose New Hampshire DES and we already have those results. All right, so we are asking, each of these boxes is asking for a specific thing. So in each of these boxes, you want to make sure that you are attaching exactly what it's asking for and not attaching the same document in every box. I am not going to attach anything today because I want to show you what it will do if you don't. I'm going to hit next section. So it allows you to continue on here. So the water supply at this property is from a private well that has a PFAS exceedance. Yes. If you hit no, I believe, yep, it comes up with a warning box that you need an exceedance to be eligible. We're going to go with yes. All right, treatment or service connection installation complies with applicable state and local plumbing regulations and local permitting requirements. Yes. So the installer that you choose to do the work, you should ensure with them that they are following all these regulations and permitting requirements. And then we will move to the next section. So filling this out as the owner, I have to read through all of these and check the box to confirm that these are all true and that I understand what each of them says. I'm not going to go through and read them all for you today, and then have you read and understood the terms and conditions? Those are linked right here. You can click on this and it will open up what is the last page of the paper document for you to read through those. Once you've done all that, we'll continue on to the next section. So this is a review of your application. You can see all of your answers outlined here for you. You will see right here, I didn't attach anything or upload any files. So it is going to tell you that it is required. The only one that we're not requiring is the specification sheet. So each one, so you would need to go back and fill in those required documents before you could submit. It's because, as you can see, it doesn't even give you the option to submit until you fill all those out. So I wanted to show you that, but I don't want to take the time tonight to actually go in and attach something to each of those. But once you do, there will be a submit button on the bottom. You can, actually, wait, here we go. Let's try this, certify and submit. Right here, there are one or more areas of the form that have not been fully completed. In order to submit this form, please revisit the sections. So there we go. It doesn't allow you to submit. You can click on any of these on the left-hand side to go back to them at any time. So you just go back to required documentation, upload, and then it should allow you to certify and submit at the bottom. I want to point this out to you here on the bottom. You can save this and exit and come back to it later. You don't have to fill it out all at once. You won't lose your information if you do so. That's why it's important to hang on to your username and password. You can go back into this. I will show you here if you click on my submissions up here at the top. It's taking a second. It's going to show you a dashboard that shows you your application submission. As you can see, I've put a few in here as I've been testing the application, but here is the one that I just did right here on the top. You'll see it's in draft form. You can go back and edit this at any time by clicking on the little pencil. It'll bring you back into the application. So say you've finished your application, you've attached everything, it's complete, you've submitted it to us. Then you realized after the fact that something was in error. Like you forgot to attach something, you forgot an invoice, or you attached the wrong thing and you need to go back in. As long as we have not gone in and locked the application form, you can go back in and edit it. And by going to this My Submission page, it'll show you the status of your application. So the other important piece of this is that you see this is in draft. This one down here is deemed complete. As we go through the process of reviewing your application and moving it along through all the steps through Paige, John, and Josh, we are going to update the status of your application here on this dashboard. So this is a tool for you to use to track the status of your rebate. So it's a tool you can use rather than reaching out and contacting us to see what the status is. You can just go in here and figure out what it is. The other thing that this has the ability to do is email correspondence. So we can email you if we need more documents, if it's not complete. So we use this as a tracking tool, and you can use it as a tracking tool as well. So that is the online application form in a nutshell. On this slide here, I once again just showed you the My Submissions page. I believe a question will be is how do you get back to this after you've completed your application? On the bottom of the slide here, you will see a link. It'll bring you back to this page right here. You'll have to log in to get to it. But that is the easiest way to get back to this page. All right, that is all I have for tonight on the process and the overview and some treatment. We are going to move on to questions. So I once again want to guide you towards this slide. So this is how you're going to use the question function box to get on the list to ask a question. So once again, on your dashboard, up on your right-hand side, you're going to see questions here. You're going to click on this little white triangle. It'll bring down this drop down here. And here where it says enter a question for staff, we're asking you to type in your first and last name and your town that you live in. But again, please do not type your question in here. You're going to have an opportunity to ask your question live and then hit send. If anyone's having any issues with this process, you can contact Paige for assistance. Her information is there. All right. So here's a little bit of some how-to and ground rules of how this is going to work. All right. So you've identified that you want to ask a question. Josh is going to be monitoring the question box and adding you to the list. And then we are going to call upon each person in the list in the order in which you signed up. So Josh has you on this list in order. We're going to pop the list up on the screen so you can see it, so you'll know where you are in the queue to ask your question. We will identify you by name and unmute you on our end and invite you to ask your question. We will note we're going to unmute you on our side, but you still may be self-muted on your side, so you might have to also unmute yourself. All right, when you're invited to speak, we ask that you just tell us your first and last name again for the record. We're asking that you limit the time for your questions to 3 minutes. So you can ask multiple questions as long as they're not lengthy. And then we want to be able to accommodate everybody on the list, because like I said earlier, we will leave the questions open until the last question is asked. So we want you to be respectful of other people's questions as well. If you do have an additional question past your 3 minutes, you are more than welcome to put your name back into the question box and get your name back on the list to ask another question. All right, so at this time, I believe we're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to allow Josh to share his screen and get the list up, and also give all of you some time to get your name into the question box, get something to drink, do what you need to do. So we will take 5 minutes right now, and then we'll come back on and we'll add Jeff and Andy to the panel, and we will start answering your questions. All right, so Josh, I am going to turn over presenter status to you.
That's great. I just wanted to let you know that we have 26 so far on the list.
All right.
Feverishly typing in as they come in.
All right, so it's about 7:28 right now, so maybe about 7:33 we'll come back on. Jeff and Andy, whenever you're ready, if you want to pop your cameras on.
Hey, Amy, can you just check your chat function?
My chat or my questions? My chat? Yes. I don't know as if I have one handy, Paige. Josh, are there still names coming in?
Yes, there are. Now I'm at 28.
All right. All right, while we're waiting, Paige has asked that I pop up an example of a spec sheet for everybody to see. So, Josh, I am going to steal
Okay.
presenter mode back from you. I'm just going to pop this up. Just let me know if that's the right screen. you see Filtrazorb?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a spec sheet for granular activated carbon. So when we say specification sheet, this is what we are looking for. They make them for media, they make them for different treatments for reverse osmosis. So that is an example of what we're looking for when it comes to a spec sheet. All right. I am now going to give you presenter mode back.
All right.
All right, it's about 7:33, so it's been about 5 minutes. So Josh and Andy, if you want to come on, maybe give a little introduction. I'll let you introduce yourselves.
Thanks, Amy. My name is Jeff Martz. I'm the administrator of NHDES's Hazardous Waste Remediation Bureau. The Hazardous Waste Remediation Bureau is responsible for investigating and overseeing remediation of hazardous waste sites, and that includes PFAS sites across the state. Andy?
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Fuller. I am a hydrogeologist in the Hazardous Waste Remediation Bureau State Site Section. I'm the project manager for the St. Gobain site in Merrimack. So if you have questions regarding that, I can try to help you out with those.
All right. So Josh, if you can scroll up so I can see number 1.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
You're busy typing.
I know. We'll get this started. So, so Dawn Wolf, if you can unmute Dawn for us.
Yeah.
And as soon as you're unmuted, Dawn, you're free to ask your question.
Oops. Let's see. Looks like attendee is self-muted.
All right. So Dawn, if you can unmute yourself on your end, we should be able to hear you.
Hello.
Hello.
Actually, my question was answered during the presentation. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. All right. Then we will move to Norman Bovair. So as soon as Josh has you unmuted.
Getting there. Okay. I don't, it looks like he might have left.
I don't see him on the list either.
Me neither. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. Norman, if you are out there and you want to ask a question, please just pop your name back in the question box. So we will move on to Sarah Thomas.
We're actually answered. I'm sorry.
We already answered your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right, perfect. All right, so Martha Smith. It looks like Martha, oh,
Can
there
you
you
hear
go. We can,
Okay.
go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, I have a few parts to my question. The first thing that you covered was you said that this rebate will not cover both point of use and point of entry. So do you have a recommendation of which is better to install?
I wouldn't say that one is better over the other as far as PFAS removal. I believe it really comes down to your comfort level and what treatment is best for you. So a point of use, like I said, it's going to be at your kitchen sink. Typically, they have a third faucet on your kitchen sink that you need to use, and that's the water you get for your drinking water and your cooking water. I will say, like a reverse osmosis, for every gallon that you treat, you waste 3 gallons of water, and some people don't like that concept, and so they would rather not do a reverse osmosis. So I wouldn't say one treatment is better over the other. I think it really comes down to your situation your comfort level and what you would want to do. And if you want to talk through that a little more offline, feel free to reach out to me and we can talk through it some more.
Okay, but point of use would also do the kitchen water and the refrigerator. You said that they could do both?
It can do both. It's something you'd have to discuss with your treatment installer. You know, let them know that you want to treat both the sink and the refrigerator, and they can plumb that for you that way. Yes.
Okay, and the whatever vendor that you well, I'm using probably the wrong term for this, but the installer that you get to put this system into your house. Do they all give you electronic receipts? I haven't gotten electronic receipts a lot from these people that come in. They just like handwrite something and hand it to me.
That is a good question that I am not 100% sure on the answer. So I don't know the answer to that question, but it's something you can ask them for, an electronic version.
Okay, yeah. Electronic version of the breakdown. And the post-treatment results. We have to go to somebody who tests water to get that, correct? As a homeowner?
Yeah, so what I'm recommending to people is that they reach out to whoever installed their treatment to come back and do that sample. Or if the treatment installer says that they will not do that, there is a list of labs on the website that you can use, and you can contact them to assist you with the sampling.
Okay, but it might be something that the person who installs it will do?
Yes.
You think? Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and do you know, I have not installed it yet, even though I've been buying my own water and using my own bottled water that I buy. But it sounds like I have to upfront the dollars to do this, to install whatever equipment I choose. That you don't get the rebate money and then hire somebody.
Right, we don't give you the money up front. So you have two options. You can install, pay for the treatment, and then apply for the rebate. Or you can ask whatever treatment installer that you're working with if they will apply on your behalf. And if they apply on your behalf, we pay the installer directly.
Okay, but you don't know of any installers that are doing that yet?
At this point, we do not.
I can't imagine.
I couldn't tell you one or the other.
I really can't imagine many installers wanting to do that. They would probably want their money and then have us wait for the check to come in. So I think that might be all of the questions that I had at this point. Thank you. This was a good presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And if you think of other questions, feel free to put your name back in the question box and get back in the list.
Okay.
All right. We will move on to Stephen Mayo.
Stephen wasn't on the attendee list anymore. So.
Okay. Then we will move on to the next one. Susan Goulat.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. So you had mentioned that you have about 3,500 known contaminated wells, and that the $20 million would more than cover that. But I'm wondering, since you are allowing people who have already installed these systems as far back as September 30th of 2019, does that are they included in that number, or could there be a lot more people out there who are eligible than what you have determined, so that the money would get depleted quite readily if there are a lot of people who have already put in systems and will now be applying, but they're not included in that number? That's my question.
Okay, so we have enough funding to assist 3,500 households. At this time, we know of approximately 1,100 people that have exceedances based on the sampling we've done. So we have more money than we know of need. So of those 1,100 people, this is sampling we've done over the past like 5 or 6 years. So if they've already installed, they are probably already part of that 1,100 that we reached out to. So we know about them already through our sampling. What we don't know is anyone who chose to sample their well on their own and didn't report those results to us. That's the number we don't know. So the difference basically there is, I'll do some quick math, like, what is that, 2,400 households that we don't know, that we can assist. So we have more funding than we know of need at this point. So we're not worried about the funding running out for that reason.
Okay. Because I'm just wondering, now that this program's available, there obviously will be a lot of people who will want to put systems in, and contractors will be busy. There might be a few months delay. Just hypothetically, what happens if someone finally gets a system in who's eligible, but the money has for some reason run out? That's it? You're stuck with paying for it yourself?
Ultimately, yes. If we run out of funding, then yes, what we're going to do is put you on a wait list in the chance that we may secure more funding in the future. So yes, that is what would happen if there was that delay. But again, I'm not anticipating that this is going to happen within the next 6 months, maybe even a year at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, we'll move on to Kathleen McGurk.
Okay, yes. Thank you for the presentation. Very informative, appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes.
So we're in the very beginning stages of the process of trying to figure all this out. We don't even know if we want to do which way we're going to go yet. But in terms of like where we start looking, is there like a list of accredited vendors that we might have as a resource tool, contractor?
There is a list on the website. So the very first link in the presentation brings you to the main website. The other thing you can do is search New Hampshire PFAS Rebate Program. And the first search that comes up will bring you to that page. And at the bottom, under additional resources, there is a link to treatment installers.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Yvonne Lay.
Looks like Yvonne is offline as well.
Okay, then let's queue up Edward Buckley.
Okay, hold on a minute.
There you go. Hi, Amy.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. You knew I would call.
Yes.
I've actually submitted everything, but you've clarified some points. The first question I had is how do you know what the total out-of-pocket expense that we have gone through? And I know you can get it from who installed the actual equipment, but in terms of the post-treatment, they have it it's a 22-page report, and they have it at the end of the 22-page report, an invoice. Is that something that can be accepted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that will be accepted.
Okay. And the other question I had is on the that I had to go through Culligan installed a total point of entry system completely. So they send me an invoice. All it says on it is total POF system installed. Then I have the breakout that you showed earlier in the media section. We have that, and I have a photo. Is that sufficient? Or do you need that list of the different numbers of the equipment? Or does the photo and saying they have a complete PFO system installed, is that enough, do you think?
It sounds like it from what you're talking, but we would have to review your application. You did it online?
I did it on, believe it or not, Amy, I did.
Perfect.
With the
All right,
help of
so-
my wife, of course.
All right, so Paige is going to review that for completeness, and if she sees anything that's missing, she'll reach out.
Okay. The other thing is it says on it due 8/7. What does that mean? It was like a notation when you went in and looked at the status and everything. It said due 8/7, which is next Sunday. I'm wondering if that's the date that they have to have it complete or what?
That's an internal due date for us. You don't have
Okay.
to worry about that. Yeah.
Then the final question I want to tell you, you had mentioned radon, and when we had it tested, the first part, it was 2430. The specification is 4,000. But I'm concerned about the impact on the carbon in that system in terms of radon. And could you just explain a little bit more about what the impact is of radon on a carbon-based system? Does it deteriorate it from 3 years to 1 year, or is it something we should be concerned about where we're under 4,000?
Under 4,000, it's less of a concern, but the carbon will remove the radon, and then what happens is the radon starts to decay by its half-life into its radioactive constituents. At that level, you could go longer before you have to replace the carbon. So I would say if you're like 2 years out, you'd still be good at that level of radon to change your carbon out. It's when you get above 4,000 and closer to 10,000 that it becomes more of a concern.
Okay.
So it's just something to be aware of, that you have radon, and you don't want to extend your carbon change out probably much past 2 to 3 years.
Okay. We also came in a little heavy on the arsenic and uranium. Now, if we were to extend and get more systems installed to correct the excess uranium and arsenic, is there systems out there that you could get corrected for the radon as well? And will you guys pay for it? Which is the question, Amy.
So radon is either removed with carbon or an aerator, and those technologies don't work on arsenic and uranium. So
Okay.
you would have to get a completely different treatment mechanism for those, which would not be covered by the rebate.
All right. So in other words, for the arsenic and the uranium, you guys wouldn't cover that as part of this program.
Correct.
Well, I wish you were wrong, Amy, but
I know. I'm sorry.
no problem at all. Amy, it's a wonderful job. Thank you very much. I appreciate the help you've given me over the last month or so.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye. All right. Victoria Rubin.
I think Victoria has logged off as well, Amy.
Okay. Then let's move on to Julie Litch.
Hi, this is Julie. I did have a question. Someone had mentioned the water test with the funding. If something happened with if there was a lot of the funding being used, is that something that you might provide an update on? If the funding does go dry, to kind of give people a heads up.
That's a good question. You mean to kind of let somebody know that the funding's almost gone?
Yes, yeah. I know you had said you predict probably 6 months to a year, but if it was something more like 3 months and we're waiting, for vendors to install, it might change someone's mind about what they're actually doing, knowing that, there's no longer funding available for a rebate program.
So my guess of 6 months to a year is completely a guess. It could be even longer than that. We just don't know outside of the sampling we've done what's out there. I'm not sure how we would message out that we are almost out of funding. I guess my only recommendation is that if it's been a while since the start of the program, if we're well into next year, to reach out to one of us on the rebate team to ask the question before you expend the money.
Okay, sure. All right, that sounds good. I wasn't sure of it, just like a notice on the website saying, oh, just, the rebate program has stopped, due to funds no longer being available or something along that line. But I will certainly reach out if it's a long time before I get someone in here. Thank you for your help.
You're welcome. All right, Maria Doyle.
It looks like she's a call-in.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, yes,
there
we can.
Yeah, I'm on the computer, but something was wrong with my computer audio. I'm feeling a little clairvoyant because we had a point of entry. We were informed by DES that we had actually, a neighbor had a different toxin in the water, but then when DES came and tested our water, they found PFOS. We had a point of entry system put in, and I had them invoice me separately for the PFOS mitigation because in case there was ever any future rebate program. Unfortunately, this is in August of 2019.
Okay.
So is there any, is the September 30th firm, is there any cost that I might be able to get rebated?
Okay, so we've built in a waiver piece to this, so you can ask for a waiver of the date. So I would say you could do this through an email, some sort of documentation if you want to write it in a letter and send it to the PFAS rebate program website or email. Just stating what you would like and that you're asking for a waiver, and then it's something that we'll review and then get back to you. I can't say at this point whether we would or would not, but it is something you can ask for.
Okay, what information would you need in the email? Just what I just said, basically, or do you need any documentation?
Yeah, just state that, your well was tested at what level, you installed at this date, which is just outside the retroactive date, and ask for a waiver of that time frame.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I seem to be number 19 as well.
Okay.
This was my only question. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll have Josh remove you. All right, can we move on to John Belock?
I don't see John on the list anymore either.
Okay, then let's move on to Christine Mills.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Oh, all right. There's a really bad echo, so I don't know. You need to turn.
She's logged in on 2 different devices. She needs to
Wait. I don't know if you can move to another room or. Hello?
I just muted her.
Okay,
yeah,
she's
got 2 devices. Okay. She's logged in twice. She should be all set now.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, I initially got on the list because I couldn't hear you, so then I went on my phone so I could hear the rest of the webinar. But I'm calling from Amherst. When I initially got the letter, I was wondering about the water test because we have not had a pre-sample done, as far as I know. When I emailed, I was wondering if we get the pre-sample done and it doesn't show that we have any PFAS in the water, what happens with that? Do we absorb that cost? When I emailed in, they said yes, you'd have to pay for that. But then it sounded like early in your presentation that it sounded like you guys would pay for it. I don't know if I'm wrong.
So you installed treatment already and
No.
then you have not installed treatment. Okay.
No.
And you've had your well sampled, or you have not?
We have not.
Okay. So if you have your well sampled and there's an exceedance, then you're eligible for the program. If you have it sampled and there is no exceedance, then you're not eligible. So if you chose, say you had a detect of PFAS that's not over the standard and you chose to put in treatment, you would not be eligible for the rebate program. What I was saying earlier is if you choose to do your pre-sample on your own, we would cover the cost of that if there was an exceedance and you were eligible for the rebate program. You could recoup that cost. But if you do the test yourself and there is no exceedance, then you cannot recoup that cost from us. But I will tell you that if you have not had your well sampled yet, you can go on to the New Hampshire PFAS investigation webpage and request sampling from the DES.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. That's my question.
All right. All right, thank you. Let's move on to Helen Wilson.
Helen is not on the list anymore, so we can move on.
All right, Wendy Marini.
Hi, sorry about that. It wouldn't let me unmute for a while. I was wondering, you actually kind of touched on one of my questions. I just wanted to quickly ask so I could get to the second question I have, but you just said that we would go to NHDES to request a test, so that they would they cover that then? I'm assuming if they do it, they'll cover it.
So if the DES comes out to sample your well, it is no cost to you. We sample for PFAS, for VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, and we do a modified standard analysis, which includes a bunch of things, but like your arsenic, your uranium, iron, manganese, a whole bunch of other ones. But what we don't do is bacteria and radon.
Okay, which I had that done. I had that done when I moved in, so I'm not as worried about that. I just know I have a neighbor that had an insanely high level of PFAS, so I'm kind of concerned about my well. But how, like, are they still really far behind on testing? Like, is it going to take them a while to get out, and I might be better just going with a vendor and then trying to get a rebate for that piece as well later?
It's really it's your choice. I do know that we are targeting our sampling right now in areas that have known PFAS issues. And so as we get an exceedance, we chase that out 500 feet. And that's what we are currently working on. We are working in Southern New Hampshire though. So what I would do is fill it out. The last time I talked to them, they were scheduling out 2 weeks. I don't know if that's changed though.
Okay, and that is on the NHDES website?
Yes, if you go to the New Hampshire PFAS investigation page, you can find it under PFAS in your drinking water.
Great. Then my other quick question was, it may just be a rumor, but I thought I heard specifically, at least in our town, that they were requiring builders to connect all new housing to public water sources. And I think maybe kind of this problem, or because of this problem, I don't know if that's true, but the question is, we actually, from my ex's house and from my house, we both have communities that are very new going in, and think that I saw public water being, coming in from other roads and everything as they, dug up, along the ditches and that type of stuff, putting in huge piping. And they're only a street over from me. Would it, like, I'm just wondering, is there ever a possibility that, those of us in communities that have wells, would we ever possibly be able to get a water main out to us, or should we just, you know, kind of say, oh, I just need to treat my well and not, that's not going to happen.
So I can speak for Londonderry. They are working on a plan on extending water. I would encourage you to reach out to the town manager and talk to them about it. I don't know the status of it at this point, but I do know there have been some discussions that they are looking at extending water or standing up their own public water system. Again, I don't know where they're at in that progress, but reach out to the town manager and they would be able to answer that question for you.
Okay, great.
All right, Wendy, if you don't have any other questions, we'll move on to Allison. I'm just going to go with Allison because I don't want to butcher your last.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. It's Shandonette, but I don't blame you for passing up on that one. Thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it. My question did get answered by somebody else who asked the same question. So
All right,
thank you.
perfect. You're welcome. All right, so Eric Poole.
There we go. Okay.
Hello.
The other question I had was, when do you expect the recording of this session to be available to us?
So at the end of this, the platform is going to send you an email with a link, and that link's going to bring you to the handouts and the recording. But I would say give me a couple days because it's going to take a couple days for me to download it and then upload it. So I'm hoping to do it tomorrow, but I don't want to make a promise I cannot keep. So
Okay.
give me a couple days. Yep.
That'll be fine. And then will that include all this question and answer session?
Yes, it will. Yep, it'll include the whole entire webinar.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, Ron White.
Ron is unmuted. Are you there?
Is he self-muted?
No, his mic is green.
All right, Ron, if you're talking, we cannot hear you.
I know who Ron is. I will follow up with him.
Or he can, if he wants, because we can't hear him, he can type his question in the question box and Josh can ask it for him. All right, we're going to move on for right now because we can't hear you, Ron. Okay. Martha Smith, I believe, has another question.
Yes, I have another question. Thanks.
Yep.
One of the things that you said when you were talking about the two different forms about point of use or point of entry, you said that that it was no problem to use it to the water to shower in, which is what I was told before, and or brush your teeth. You mentioned brush your teeth. Is it you hold to that, right?
Brushing your teeth is considered incidental, and so the exposure is not as great as the drinking water or cooking with it. So yes.
Okay, so it sounds to me like the point of use is maybe a better way to go. If we're not worried about brushing our teeth or anything else that we would do outside of the kitchen and cooking.
Yes, it's acceptable technology for that reason, and the other benefit of it is cheaper to maintain throughout the years. The operation and maintenance of it is cheaper than a whole house system.
Correct, and it will do what you want it to do. Okay, thanks. That's my question. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Barbara Sugarman.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I have two questions. One of them is, I belong to a homeowners association in Rolling Meadows. They have already come to us with 3 solutions to the problem. They had this meeting back in June. Haven't heard a word since. Where they're going to have voting and all of this, who knows when the majority will choose one of those 3 options. So I'm going back to that initial statement that someone made, if that 20 million runs out. So whether it's 3 years, 4 years, if it hasn't run out, we can still apply for what it would cost us. In other words, we're going to have to share in one of these solutions. And one of them is actually tapping into public. The other is to have a point of entry at certain areas so that we wouldn't be paying an actual bill. We'd be sharing in that one huge bill, which is millions, by the way.
Yes.
So would we be able to receive a rebate on that?
Okay, so Rolling Meadows is a registered public water system with the DES. So for that reason, you're not eligible for the rebate program. But I can tell you, you're right that Rolling Meadows has submitted an application for a different funding program that also comes through me. Right now, they are working on their final application. They have approved funding, but they're working through the process. And so through that, the result of that, like you said, it would either be an interconnection or some form of treatment, whether it be centralized treatment for the whole facility or if it's treatment on different buildings. They're working through that right now. And so my suggestion in the meantime, though, while you're waiting for the permanent solution to come in, is if you don't want to go and like maybe put in a reverse osmosis on your kitchen sink, there is a filter pitcher out there that will remove
excuse me
Yes.
for interrupting, just to save time.
No. Yep.
I've already put in a reversed osmosis before they even come out with this Zoom meeting that announcing everything. I've been reading in the papers. So, we had the well tested, and yes, it's above the limit. So at this point, we've already spent $1,000 or so between the plumber to install the reversed osmosis, and it was the point of service is what we had put in. So could we submit for that?
You're not eligible under
the
restrictions of the program. I mean, like I mentioned to someone earlier, there is a waiver process for this. If you want to submit for a waiver, you can try. I can't tell you today if it would be approved or not, but you can submit that to us and ask.
I understand that, but at this point, there's 150 in this association, and I'm sure there's many more out there. So, okay, you've answered my question. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, let's move on to Lisa Stachin.
Hi. First, I wanted to thank you. That was a really good presentation. I did miss a little bit of the vendor ID part. And so will those slides be in that email with the other stuff you said? Or are they?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So the link will have the video, it'll have the slides, and it will have the vendor registration guide that walks you through how to fill out the form and a couple other things as well.
Okay, because I just missed a few pages. Someone came home and made a lot of noise. So I did have my water tested through the DES, through you guys, and the first page was fantastic because the things that didn't pass were in bold. But these important 4 things were like hidden in page 8, no bold, no nothing. So you didn't know real. I mean, I looked at it forever and I'm an accountant, so I work with numbers, and I was like, how did this happen? But yeah, if they could figure out how to bold those things so you can find them much easier, because you don't know which ones are the bad ones when you're looking at the report and what it should be. But you did give the numbers, so I'm looking at page 7 and I found them all, which ones were bad. But so my other question was, any clue on like a ballpark cost of what it costs for a whole house system? I had somebody come the other day and I thought it was really low. And I'm like, that just kind of seemed low.
From what I'm hearing from people, it's ranging from about 2,500 up to 5,000. And I think the difference in these costs really comes down to whether they're installing one carbon vessel versus 2 carbon vessels. So there is quite a range depending on which treatment installer you're talking to. So I do recommend that you talk to more than one and get quotes from them.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get a couple of more. But yeah, this guy was highly recommended. And he says he's already approved from you. But now that you said that there's a list there, I will go check that list. And yeah, I thought it was kind of it was like $3,200 for the 2 carbon whole house thing. And I thought, oh, that seemed kind of not what I figured. If there was a $5,000 rebate, I was talking way over $5,000 to get what I needed. But yeah, that would be nice if I can keep it under that.
Yeah, no, our intent is hopefully to be able to cover the cost of a point of entry for people 100%. So that was the goal.
That would work. Thank you very much for doing this and helping us get informed, because some of us are just clueless.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, Randy McAuley.
He's not signed in anymore either.
Okay, then John Mahone.
Wait,
Whoop.
Randy was just here a second ago and he was under Randall.
Oh, let me look. Oh, I found him.
Oh, okay, back to Randy.
Hi there. You guys hear me?
We can.
First of all, thanks very much. As Lisa said, this has been very helpful, and I really appreciate what you do and help us out here. Lisa also asked my first question about the whole house system. So how about the point of view system? Any idea of a rough approximate cost if I wanted to treat my refrigerator and my kitchen sink?
So what I've been hearing from people is about 1,200 to 2,000 for the point of use.
And you mentioned on that one that you're going to waste a lot of water with that. Where does that water go? How does that work?
So it's just discharged. So it treats 1 gallon and you'll have a tank underneath your sink, and then the rest just gets discharged out to the plumbing.
Okay. And the other question I have very little room under my kitchen sink. Is it possible to install that system in the basement and then have that? I think the water that goes to my refrigerator is tapped off the cold water that goes to my sink. So it might make it easy, but I'll have to double check that. But could it be installed in the basement?
I do know there are treatment installers that, yes, install them in the basement if there's not enough room under the kitchen sink. And that's where they get the ease of use to actually plumb in your refrigerator as well, is coming up through the basement.
Perfect. Okay, that answers my questions, and thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, now we can move on to John.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
I'm in. Okay.
You are.
Very, very nice job. 3 or 4
Thank
quick
you.
questions. We had a point of entry system installed yesterday, and I got my invoice from the plumber, and it is very brief. And I wanted to do my paperwork with you folks this week. Can you tell me specifically what you need to see in an itemized invoice?
So did they just give you like one lump sum with no explanation of what that lump sum covers? Or is there like a little bit of a breakdown, like this much for plumbing, this much for the treatment unit?
No, all it says is PFAS removal system complete, basically.
Okay. I believe as long as you didn't have anything else installed, like a water softener or any sort of radon treatment, no other treatment equipment, that should be fine.
Okay, and we did not, so that's great. That handles that question. In terms of the post-test, I talked to the lab today. They seem to have 3 levels of PFAS tests that they do, testing different quantities of PFAS. Which level do we need? There's a 6, there's an 18, and there's a 24.
So for the purposes of the rebate program, we really only need results from the 4 regulated ones. So you could just go with the list of 6. I mean, the DES would like to see a longer list, as many as you would want to, analyze for, but we do understand there's a cost to it. So it's entirely up to you. But as long as those 4 regulated compounds are included, that's what we need.
Okay. Speaking of costs, once we have a completed application to you folks, what would be your best estimate as to when we would see a rebate check?
We are going with a 4 to 6 week turnaround time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good enough. And then my last thing was just a comment from the installer. Based on our 2-person household here, he thought out of our new point of entry system, 2 tanks, that we could get maybe 5 years rather than the 1 to 2 year changeover that you talked about. Do you think that's reasonable?
5 years seems a little long. I would recommend like the longest, maybe 2 to 3 years, but you really don't know without taking a sample beyond that whether 5 years is at this point acceptable. It really depends on the concentrations of PFAS in your well, how you use the water. With a whole house, you're using it for laundry, showering, toilets. So you're running all that water through your carbon. 5 years seems a little long, so I would recommend maybe sampling after 2 years to see if you're getting breakthrough through that carbon. So I wouldn't go more than 3 years.
And that breakthrough after 2 years would show up as higher PFAS numbers in is that what we're testing for again?
Yes, so you're testing for PFAS again to see if you're getting numbers above the standard.
Super, great. Thank you very much. Great presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, so Paul Margolin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, we can hear you.
Great. Kudos to you, Amy, and your team for standing up a great program for us. Very appreciative. I had more questions, but people have been asking them for me, evidently. So particularly John just then. Really 2 things are left. One is, are there any more, to your knowledge, are there any other PFAS-related compounds that you have some knowledge are being perhaps considered for adding to the list in the future yet?
There are none that I'm aware of right now, but I'm going to refer you to our toxicologist. He's the one who looks at these compounds and the research and makes those determinations. His name is Dr. Jonathan Patali, and I can give you his direct line in a second. So it will be 603-271. Let's see.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm going to get the last 4 digits for you. 1359. So that's his direct line, or you can email him as well. All of our emails are the same. Their first name dot last name @des.nh.gov. So it's Jonathan Patali. That's Petali.
Okay, that sounds great. The other thing is the life of a carbon system. John kind of touched on that. You say that that's largely heavily impacted by other things such as radon that could deteriorate it very relatively quickly. Is there a way to say controlling for that if those things were not an issue? Is that what you're saying? Controlling for those things, you might be able to get as many as 3 years as a rough estimate of lifetime?
Yeah, so if you've had a radon test and you know your level of radon and it's high, you could pre-treat for the radon to remove it prior to the water getting to the carbon to remove the PFAS. So by removing the radon first, you're extending the life of that carbon for your PFAS treatment. And so you would be able to go longer, like 2 to 3 years before you have to change it out. But if you have high levels of radon and you're running both of those contaminants in your carbon, you really want to be mindful that you might need to change that carbon out on an annual basis for the radon concentrations.
I see. Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, Paul Stevens.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear
Hello?
you. Yes.
Yes, hi. We haven't been able to use our water in 3 years. We initially got the letter to have our well tested. We came back positive that our well wasn't safe to drink. And so I just wanted to clarify when you were going over the form, we were told not to use our water to brush our teeth, to wash our vegetables, cook with, that we could only use our water for showers, laundry, and the dishwasher, and that we would be provided water through Monadnock Water. So for 3 years, we've been living out of bottled water. Does that mean because we're receiving bottled water, we're not eligible for the rebate?
It sounds like you may be inside the St. Gobain consent decree area, so I am going to ask either Jeff or Andy to address this question.
Yes, this is under the St. Gobain.
Okay.
Hi, Paula. Yeah, so if
Hi.
you're within the St. Gobain consent decree area, they are the ones that are providing the bottled water to you through Monadnock, and they're the ones that are responsible for providing an alternate water to you that is potable. If you reach out to me offline, I can maybe tomorrow. I'd be happy to kind of look a little bit more in your case. We've just come to an agreement in April and in June for a large number of properties. So I might be able to kind of get you a little bit more information on what they're putting together right now. And if you've been provided bottled water, your name and your property should be on that list. So I'd be happy to discuss that with you. If you'd like, you can give me a call tomorrow, or you can shoot me an email, whatever is, I guess, whatever would be your preference.
What is your number?
My number is 603-271.
Okay.
6573.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All that information is available on the PFAS website too, if you were to navigate
Okay.
there. But I'd be happy to go through it with you tomorrow if you'd like.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's the only question I had.
All right, thank you, Paula. Joseph Recivido. Yeah. Sorry.
That was very good. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for offering this webinar. Your presentation really was very helpful. We appreciate it. I think you've answered most of our questions, but we did have one. You mentioned that the radon remediation can cause radioactive byproducts, and we were wondering about safe disposal of carbon filters if radon is eliminated. What do you do with them after 2 or 3 years, whatever the time limit is on them, when they're completely exhausted?
So you're not going to like this answer, but as long as you're changing them out in an appropriate amount of time before the radioactive decay becomes an issue, they are just thrown out and landfilled.
Oh.
Yes.
So some of those devices have timers or sensors on them that say when they need to be changed. Would that determine the safe time to do that before they are hazardous?
It will not. Those timers are more of a function for backwashing the system. So you can get a carbon system that is backwashed. I think typically most of those that are installed do not backwash, and so they wouldn't have that timer head on them. So it's really just a matter of your concentration in your water and how much water you use. So the treatment installer can help you determine how often you should be changing out the carbon depending on your radon levels.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, Sherry Papajohn McGuire.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, this is Sherry. I also have my husband, John, who just got in from work. So my question, and thank you, I missed a little bit of the presentation in the beginning, but I appreciate your time in doing this. And Amy, we spoke way back when we bought our house in Bedford in 2018. So my situation is similar to Paula's question, which was we are part of the original consent decree from St. Gobain with the Monadnock Water and establishing that they obviously were a responsible party at that point. However, we have a 3 and 6-year-old coming into the house. So we did get a point of entry treatment system put in after testing, and NHDES also came and tested for us. So you have all that information. So I'm seeing if again, I think I may have spoke with Andy and I got a number to St. Gobain, but I cannot get through with that number. So question is, one, do I go through the same channels that you just said for Paula? Should I be talking to Andy, or do I go for these channels and do the application for the reimbursement or rebates?
So unfortunately, you wouldn't be eligible for the rebate. So I'm going to turn it over to Andy to help you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you reach back out to me offline, and we can kind of go through this a little bit. I can try and put you in contact with some other people at St. Gobain and Golder, their consultant, if no one's getting back to you through that 800 number that was in that letter you received. So
perfect.
So I just wanted to ask a question on it. So what is the reasoning for not being eligible for that you're seeing anyway, in what you have there? Is it just because we decided to do it before everyone else did because of the same parameters that were in place at the time? All I see that we did is we just acted in a proactive manner and got the system that they're now saying, yeah, everyone should have. So.
Yep, since St. Gobain has taken responsibility for the properties in your area, and they're providing that alternate treatment, they are the ones that are responsible for it. So I think, as Amy indicated, you wouldn't necessarily qualify for the PFAS rebate program. If I did speak to you on the phone, we are in conversations with them and expressing that there are homeowners and property owners that are in a similar situation to yours. So we are asking them to at least to consider that, and at that point. So, but we can try and talk a little bit more offline about your specific situation, if that would be helpful.
Great, thank you, Andy.
Sure. And do you have my name? Do you have my number and my contact information already?
We do.
I do. I had it from before, and then when Paula asked for it, I rewrote it down.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you. All right, Anthony DeMarco.
There we go.
Somebody put my name on there. I didn't type my name in, so I really don't have a question.
Okay.
It might have been if your hand was raised, we were adding you to the list.
I didn't touch any buttons, but it was a great,
That's okay.
it was a great presentation. Thank you, though.
Thank you. All right, Cheryl Libling.
She's unmuted, but I think she might have been at, oh, no, she asked a question and raised her hand.
Is she self-muted?
No.
All right.
Oh, well.
Cheryl, we cannot hear you. So if you want to go ahead and type your question into the question box and Josh can ask.
I see. She did type something in earlier. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
I purchased a POU system a year ago after we were alerted to the PFAS problem. With the DES program today, we would like to switch to a POE system. Will the rebate cover both the 2021 POU installation and the 2022 installation of the POE to a maximum of $5,000?
Right, so the program will only cover one or the other. It will not cover both.
Okay.
Yep.
So I guess we can move on to the next one.
All right, before we move on, did we ever get a question from Ron White?
We did. I
We
can
did.
read that as well.
Yes, please.
He says, I have high arsenic, iron, and PFOS. Is the resin as opposed to the carbon an option for the POE? What benefits are to the resin? Would it reduce arsenic and iron? Have you any idea of the cost of two 12-inch by 48-inch carbon cylinders installed?
Okay. So you're going to have to reach out to a treatment installer to get some of these answers. As far as the resins go, I know there's a couple different resins out there. I don't know their capabilities beyond PFAS, but they could have others. And as far as the pricing for that specific vessel size, that's really something you'd have to get from a treatment installer. Okay, I think we can move on to Robert. We are coming to the end of the list, so if anyone does have any other questions, please add your name to the question box so Josh can add them to the list. Otherwise, we have Robert Musso.
Hello.
Hello.
I pushed the right button, which is unusual. My question is when is St. Gobain going to do something about the water? I've been waiting for almost 3 years for them to do something, and it seems like, yes, they're getting things done. No, they're not. I had my analyzed quite a when I first looked at that now. 2020 was analyzed. How long is it going to take St. Gobain to admit that they're contaminated a lot of people's wells, and it should be fixed? You know, I live on a street that has water on one end, on both ends of the street, and nobody's going to run a water main down to fix our problem. When is St. Gobain going to fix this? This is going on for 3 years. You know, how do I sell my house?
Well, Robert, I can try to field that question first. Again, as I said kind of before, St. Gobain and DES, we had come to an agreement recently here in April and in June. So your property, if you've been receiving bottled water, is most likely on that list. But if you want to contact me offline, I'd happy to discuss, your property specifics to what remedy they may have proposed for your property, if that's the case.
Have they made a list of everybody that's going to get something, or is it still
well, so far in April and in June, we had come to an agreement. There's a little over 1,100 properties that are listed in those two agreements. The first batch from April, it was about 350. Those residents have been mailed letters with whatever the remedy was determined for them. There should be another batch of letters that we're expecting to kind of go out here in the next maybe month or so. It's hard to say exactly when they're going to go out, but there has been a list made, and it is available on the PFAS website for that DES holds. But again, if you contact me, I'd be happy to I can scroll through all that information, look everything up on your property specifically.
Yeah, because I never received anything, about being on the list, and I'm very shocked that no one has notified us about the list. This is the first I heard about
your
that.
name isn't necessarily on the list. The property would be on there. I mean, there was the update to the PFAS website about the announcement about the agreement that went out.
Okay, so it's call you, and it's on the PFAS website. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
give me a call. Give me a call tomorrow, and then I can walk through it, and I can pull up your information on your property, and we can discuss it then.
Yeah, something's got to be done.
They are getting started on it. I understand it's been a long time. It's very frustrating. It's a tough situation to be in, but they are, since the agreement has been in place, they've been starting on work and getting things organized to get moving on this right away. So
My question to you, all of you, is why isn't the towns getting after them to fix the problem, especially in city water? Why isn't the town of Bedford saying, hey, let's run water lines? And nothing's happening. That's I don't understand that. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Jeff, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I know many of the towns that have been involved with the contamination in St. Cobain have been, proactive in reaching out to, DES and their elected representatives. And but the bottom line is that it's very costly to run public water. And in the case of St. Cobain, where we have a responsible party, we have regulations that require them to provide an alternate water. And our regulations don't specify, whether that's public water or a treatment system. It just specifies that it's water that meets potability requirements. So,
Yeah, well, their requirement is just give me bottled water. That doesn't make any sense. I can't do it. How do I sell my house and give them a gallon of bottled water when they walk in?
Yeah, we recognize that the investigation has taken a long time, but we are at a point where St. Cobain is beginning to take action, and they're getting ready to implement treatment systems and connection to public water in cases where people front water lines. And they're also in design phase for extension of public water in certain neighborhoods.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Robert.
Yep.
Leslie Ella.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. So I had gotten the testing done by the state a little while ago, and the results are below the limits that you guys have for this program. But we'd recently had someone come in to test our water and talk about a whole home system. And they had said that what they did was they added up all the chemicals. So that's why I thought we were eligible when I started this. But they added up all of the PFAS chemicals and said that the EPA action level is above 0. Are there chances that these limits are going to change in the future, or that the levels in our house could increase as these are dissolved into the water system?
Jeff, do you want to field this one?
Yeah, so EPA did recently come out with some non-enforceable interim health guidelines that were very low for PFAS, and those are not enforceable numbers. And the EPA is working on developing a federal maximum contaminant level, which would be enforceable. And they expect to come out with that later this year. But at this point, we don't know exactly where they'll land. In terms of whether concentrations can change in a person's well over time, in some cases we've seen wells where that does in fact happen, though we see many wells where it stays relatively constant and in some cases decreases. So that is something that could potentially change over time. But currently we don't have any standards that are enforceable in New Hampshire that sum up the PFAS and use that as a regulatory threshold.
Okay, if those thresholds do change with the EPA, would that work? Would that kind of grandfather into this program?
So I can answer that, Jeff. If our standards in the state of New Hampshire changed, whether they were based on our own analysis or EPA's, then that would factor into this rebate program, and then you would therefore then be eligible for it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much. It's great you guys are giving this to all these people that have lots of water issues.
Okay. Thank you. Susan Slane.
She's
Susan
green,
is,
but
yep, she's unmuted, but we can't hear her.
she may need to type her question.
Yeah, I was gonna say she's unmuted on both ends.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, we can't hear you, Susan. So if you could type your question in the question box and we'll have Josh read it. And while you're doing that, let's move on to Elena Zook, and then we'll go back to Susan's question if it comes in.
I don't see Elena in the attendee list anymore.
Okay, Norman Upsum.
I spoke to him earlier. It may have been a webinar question.
Okay, is he not on anymore?
He is on, but self-muted.
Okay. Norman, if you can unmute yourself on your end. On your dashboard, you should. Oh, yep, there you are. Yes, we can hear you.
I can't read either. I have had my water tested in the past by you and other agencies, and we put in a point of entry, I think it is, or it's the one with the faucet in the sink.
Okay,
And,
a point of use.
Yeah. We're looking at adding the full house system. So that is covered under this scenario. Am I correct for the 5,000?
Yes, if you put in a whole house system, we will rebate you for the whole house system, but we can only rebate you for one or the other.
Sure, I totally get that. I put the other one in because I wanted to, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure we were covered, and I want to thank you for this evening and your time in. So thank you again.
You're welcome. All right. Did Susan write a question in the question box?
No, she did not.
She did not. Okay. Do you want to try to unmute her again since we're getting towards the end, or no?
Sure. Hold on.
Give it a try and see if.
She's unmuted still. I never muted her.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so Susan, it looks like we just can't hear you. So if you do want to ask your question, please type it in the question box and Josh will read it. So I guess let's move on to Wendy Marini. You have another question?
Yes, sorry, it's me again. But I do want to thank you for the presentation. I did think of one other thing. I'm also at the same time looking at applying for financial assistance because my well is going dry as well. And so I wanted to thank Paige for getting that application out to me. But you had mentioned, I had no idea the amount of waste that the reverse osmosis caused. How many gallons did you say per gallon of use does it waste?
So for every gallon of treated water, it wastes 3 gallons of water.
Oh, okay. I know I am going to talk to the town as you recommended before. I'm going to tell all my neighbors to call the town to hurry up and get us on public water, because I literally, if my daughter is home, between flushing the toilets, doing a load of laundry and taking showers, like it's either, okay, do I run the dishwasher or do I run the laundry? So, you know, I just keep running out of water. And so I've got to figure out something to do. So hopefully they'll get us on public water sooner than later. But I may, you know, again, if I'm stuck on a well, I may have to do point of entry, because I do not think I'll never survive on a reverse osmosis system here. So,
well, let me clarify that the reverse osmosis is what we recommend for point of use, so under your kitchen sink. And so with that, you're going to get a third spigot, like a separate spigot on your sink. And so
right,
you would use that just for your drinking water and your cooking water. So all the other water would not go through the reverse osmosis.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm just
And then-
thinking,
and-
hopefully we're not drinking too much.
I mean, it's for that reason that we don't recommend reverse osmosis for a whole house system, because it is just, it wastes so much water and it's just not feasible to do so.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm just, like I said, I'm planning ahead just in case we never get on public water. I want to have a plan and figure this out. So hopefully that will help. Thank you again.
You're welcome. All right, Paul Margolin.
Okay, thanks, Amy. I wonder if you could speak a little more on the risk presented from an old point of entry carbon filter. So for instance, is the radioactivity due specifically to radon impact?
So are you asking if it's the radon that causes the radioactivity? And
Yeah, yes, I am.
okay, so yes, so radon, when it decays into radioactive materials. And so if you leave it in the vessel too long, that radioactive decay starts to accumulate to certain levels, it can become an issue. So that's why you have to be mindful to change the carbon out before you reach that level. And it really is dependent on the concentration of radon coming into the carbon vessels as to when you would have to change it out.
Okay, and so if you have pre-treatment in place for the radon, is there any other danger or risk associated with a used carbon filter?
I mean, technically, if you're maintaining it the way you should be, no. If you choose not to maintain it and you're not using it properly, there is a small risk of bacteria buildup in a carbon filter. But like I said, if you have your treatment installer coming out and maintaining it per their recommendation, there should be no other risk.
Okay, so my understanding it from my contractor was that maintaining it is nothing more than periodically doing water testing for the compounds, period. Are you aware of any other kinds of maintenance that would be required other than that?
I mean, a carbon vessel is a pretty simple thing. So no, he's right. You would want to test it on a certain period of time to see if there's any breakthrough of PFAS through that carbon filter. And if there is, that's when you would do a carbon change out. So it would be your decision whether you wanted to wait until the PFAS concentrations exceeded standard, or if you wanted to do it like as you start to see breakthrough of the regulated compounds. So
okay,
that becomes your choice.
Okay. So again, if there's pre-treatment for radon, it sounds like it's basically a struggle again against the PFAS compounds and monitoring that and keeping ahead of that. Last thing you mentioned about the landfill when you do have radioactivity. Are there not regulations that would classify a filter that's been affected by that level of radioactivity to classify that waste as hazardous waste?
Landfills are not my forte, so I might have to defer to Jeff if he knows anything about this. But the thing is that you want to change out that carbon before you get to that radioactive level. So that is the key here. But once it gets to the radioactive level, I believe it is considered a hazardous waste. But I'm going to let Jeff answer.
Yeah, I haven't gotten too into the weeds on the details of radioactive waste, but I think at some point, if you let it sit there for years and years and the radioactivity built up, it could reach dangerous levels. And without knowing the regulations on radioactive waste, that certainly could trigger some regulatory thresholds.
Very good. Thank you very much.
All right, let's move on to Bob and Lisa Doherty.
Yes, I'm muted. Hi, I guess a couple of questions. One is, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, just checking. As far as the PFAS filters, lots of the carbon filters, we have the one installed that's the same as the one that you had the data sheet up on, something scrub or whatever it was, carbon. And we're just over the limit of the PFOA. So we're just trying to get an idea as to how long that filter would probably last. We're in like 17 or 18, really low number, but still above the limit. How long that would really last as far as still working? Do you have an estimate, roughly? Years? Oh, granted, we're not filling up a swimming pool here, but
I never recommend anyone fill up their swimming pool from their private well. Not a good idea. Yes.
We don't have one yet, so that's okay.
So it's hard to say without knowing how much water you use, but I would dare to say that you could get 2 years out of it. And at that point, I would say you would want to test for PFAS again to see what your levels are. But there is a possibility you could get 3 years out of it if you're not using a lot of water at those concentrations. But it really comes down to the testing of the post-treatment water to know the life of that carbon.
Okay, and I can't imagine anybody getting rid of those tanks by themselves. I mean, they're kind of heavy to start with, so you're not going to be dragging that out to the trash or anything, as far as I can tell. The other thing is, what was you had mentioned earlier, radon levels, and what was typically a higher number for the radon levels in the water?
So we recommend treatment at anything above 4,000 picocuries per liter. And typically we would recommend carbon between 4,000 and 10,000 picocuries. And then above that, there's a different technology, aeration, that we would recommend to use.
Because we have a mitigation system for, I believe, the gas itself in the house, but yeah, and we did get a test for the radon for the water, but for the life of me, I can't find the test results. I'll have to go hunting for them. So I was just curious as to what level that would cause. I know that's definitely something for the mitigation system is really for the gas in the basement or something like that. It's like a vacuum system under the foundation. So I know it doesn't play into the water per se in the well. The only other thing is, I'm assuming at this point that the company that's caused all this grief and pain has somehow reduced the amount of PFOAs or PFO whatever's that they're outputting. Have they actually stopped the output of this stuff from St. Bain, whatever it?
St. Cobain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is an air issue, and none of us on this panel are air experts, but I can tell you that St. Cobain has installed what is called an RTO, and it's basically like a scrubber on their air emissions. So they are treating their air emissions as they leave the factory, and they have a permit which requires them to do certain sampling periodically for certain things, so that it is being monitored by the air division. So yes, they are taking steps to treat the source. They have also changed, and Jeff could probably speak more to this than I, but have changed their formulation. I'm not sure when that happened. So they're not specifically using PFOA anymore, but I'll let Jeff add to that if you'd like.
Yeah, so back in 2006, the company changed the formulation or the different chemicals that they used in their process, and it substantially reduced the amount of PFOA that was emitted from their smokestacks that were located on the roof of the building. So that change in formulation reduced the PFOA emissions, but didn't eliminate it completely, which is why the Air Resources Division, once they had the enabling legislation, was able to require St. Cobain to apply for a permit to install that regenerative thermal oxidizer, which essentially heats up the PFAS to a point where it breaks the carbon-fluorine bond.
So they're using high temperature scrubbers or something like that to basically burn up the chemical.
Yeah, essentially that's true. They use a natural gas powered flame to heat it up to really high temperatures, and it has to have a certain amount of time that it spends in that burn chamber at a certain temperature.
Understood. I work at a company, we use those all the time. So we used hydrogen, only recently switched to gas. So, okay. Thank you very much for your help. Great job, folks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, Raymond Faria.
How's that?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Amy, what do I got to do to get a copy of the DES results from a test that they did here a few years back?
If you want to email me with your address, I can send that back to you. So my email address is amy.roussesseau@des.nh.gov.
At what? DES?
At DES.
At des.nh.gov.
Okay. One other question, Amy. My daughter's got one for you, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Hi, Amy. My question is more of a holistic one, I think, with regards to what everyone is experiencing. And I guess for those of us who are well owners, part of that may have been a holistic choice because it was natural. And yes, these companies are making attempts at making it right. However, the long-term consequence is a financial burden on us, regardless of whether that's bottled water, whether that is a point of, right, whether it's the filters or whether it's the overall cost of having to now pay the town in order to have access to town water, despite the stipends that you guys are providing for the point of service or the town hookup. Like, what is, it kind of goes into that question, what are they doing to fix it? But in perpetuity, we are now financially burdened by that when before we were not. How is that going to be compensated, or has anybody even discussed that?
Amy, do you want me to take that?
Yes, please.
So you raised a really good question. PFAS are used in a lot of products that are sold to homeowners. It's in our clothing, it's in carpets, it's in our upholstery, it's in various chemicals that we use around the house to make wood water resistant and paints and whatnot. So it's used throughout our homes. It's been found to be produced in wastewater that we generate in residential settings, as well as various companies such as Saint-Gobain we talked about tonight has emitted it from their stacks, and that's impacted certain areas. So if the DES is aware of a company that has emitted PFAS into the ground, and we can demonstrate that and hold them responsible under our regulations, we'll hold them financially responsible to remedy wells. But what we found is that there are a number of properties across the state where we can't attribute or find a responsible party to hold accountable. But to that end, recognizing that these are in a large array of products that we all use, the state has taken action to file lawsuits against some of the manufacturers. And I can't really comment on the details of those lawsuits. It's outside the area where I'm working directly. But the state is taking action to pursue financial compensation for the contamination.
Okay, so those people who have a direct proof of contamination by a company, they will be held accountable or at least forced for restitution for, the filters that we're going to have to change from here on out for the rest of our ownership of the home, or, the monthly payment of water to the town. You're saying you don't know because it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and I know in normal contaminated site management, so if we had a responsible party and they hooked you up to public water, typically ongoing water bills are not something that they're responsible for. That typically falls to the homeowner, if you were connected to public water. But, I don't know what the outcome of any larger, statewide lawsuits against the manufacturers would be, that's still a ways out.
Right. I understand that under normal circumstances, if it was a choice that we made of our own volition, that we would be responsible for that bill, but we're being forced into spending additional finances where we were quite content to use our well.
Yeah, and have you been compensated by a responsible party or hooked up to water, or you're applying for the rebate program?
No, we are trying to decide what to do with regards to the rebate program. I did read your letter, and my second question is, can you direct me to evidence that these things don't bother us when we shower? Like, I can't find peer-reviewed evidence of that. I struggle knowing that if the skin is the largest organ, we absorb things through our skin. How is showering not a problem? I was just looking to read the research on that.
So I'm going to refer you to Dr. Jonathan Patali to answer that question. You can reach out to him. I'll give his number again, or you can email him. He can answer that question far better than I, Jeff, or Andy could. So his direct line is 603-271-1359. And his email is Jonathan Patali. So it's jonathan.patali@des.nh.gov. And his last name is spelled Petali.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Amy, thank you and all the guys.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Job well done. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Before we move on, did we get a question from Susan?
We did. Let me see if I can find it. She says she has been contacted by Golder in July and completed their water supply survey and access agreement. Do you know if their water test will include radon, and how quickly are they responding? With a POE system, it says how much does a carbon filter and cost?
Well, Susan, specific to your question, if you were just contacted by Golder in July to be sampled, their work, you get that information back to them that they requested, and then they'll contact you to come out to do a sample. I believe that sample itself would be for PFAS analysis. It wouldn't include radon at that time. And if they find, one of these PFAS above our drinking water standards, and they are deemed responsible, they would provide you with an alternate water, bottled water immediately, as many people have, and then they will put forth a remedy for your well after that point.
And I'll just add, if you haven't heard back after sending your paperwork to Golder, if it's been more than 2 weeks, reach out to Andy and he can follow up with Saint-Gobain. They typically turn around pretty quickly and schedule the sampling. So if it's been more than 2 weeks, certainly reach out to us.
All right. Did we ever figure out Elena Zook? Is she on or did she leave?
I still don't see her on the list.
Okay. All right. Then we'll just move on to Jim Alton.
Oh, hi. I actually had a science question. As I recall the maps, there were only about 3 affected wells in all of Hollis, and I was the champion. How does it become so spotty?
Do you want to give it a go, Jeff?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I guess the first answer to that is the source of the PFAS. There's different sources. They could be, residential, could be releases from air emissions at certain facilities. We had one in southern Amherst that we're investigating. We had Saint-Gobain. The other thing that, I've looked at Saint-Gobain data in a lot of detail, and if you zoom in on a neighborhood, often you'll find one well that's over the standard, and immediately adjacent to that property is a well that's below standard, or PFAS may not even be detected. And it really boils down to how groundwater flows to your individual well. And many wells in southern New Hampshire are completed in bedrock, and the fractures, cracks in the rock, are how those bedrock wells derive their water. And I think there's some reason to believe that depending on the way that those cracks are connected to the ground surface, if it's a more direct connection, you may find greater amounts of PFAS. Whereas if you have a really deep fracture that has old water, conceivably that water entered the ground before PFAS were even invented and used, decades ago. So that water would not contain any PFAS. And you could have mixtures of water. So you could have both the young water from a shallow fracture, and you could have old water from a deep fracture. And I think, that accounts for some of the variability we're seeing in wells across the state.
Okay, that makes sense.
And we did a presentation, I guess back in April or May, and there's some slides that explain that in a little more detail, go into some maps and diagrams on how that we think that works.
I'll see if I can find that. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeff, if you want to send it to me, I'll add it to the Dropbox link so that it'll be there for them to access.
Okay, sure. Yeah, we have a blog post, but we'll tie it into this post as well. Make it easy.
I can probably find it if it's on the blog.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right, let's move on to Lisa Stachin.
Hi, so I just have a couple more questions. You talk often about retesting every 2 or 3 years to see how your carbon filter's doing, and you have to retest after post-treatment. So any clue what retesting costs?
So yes, I'm hearing, so I know it costs about $250 to $350 depending on the lab you use if you were to go direct to the lab. I'm hearing if like a treatment installer is going to do it, that is up about $400. So it just depends on how if someone comes out to test for you or if you do the testing and bring it to the lab. But the other piece of that too is that even though we like to see a longer list of analytes when we do PFAS testing, you could do just the 4 regulated compounds, which would be a bit cheaper than doing the full list.
Okay.
Come on, Wendy, go to bed.
And my last question. The carbon filters, any clue what a price range those are?
Are you speaking like point of entry for the whole house?
Yes. So when they came, because the testing that you guys didn't have radon, and he said radon was a big clue onto which system you can have. He said if I had high radon, the point of entry is not going to happen because it would suck down my filters way too fast. But if I had low radon, then point of entry would be a good choice versus just at the sink, because I have a lot of different water sources here, so I'd like them all to be covered if possible. So I was just curious how much the carbon filters run if we're replacing them every couple of years, and there's a couple of filters in there. Just trying to see a ballpark on, long-term costs.
Okay, so with the carbon with the whole house system, you're getting a rather large vessel that can be 3 to 4 feet tall. And so it's not just a matter of changing out a filter. So a company needs to come out and actually suck the carbon out of those vessels and replace it with new carbon. So the initial install, we're hearing anywhere from like $2,500 up to $5,000, depending on the configuration. But to come out and do like a carbon rebed of those vessels, we're hearing $300 to $400. So that could be $300 to $400 every 2 to 3 years.
Okay, great. Thank you for your help.
You're welcome. All right, and Phil Sulish.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Well, I missed the beginning of the meeting because I went on at 3:30. Did that get canceled? No.
I'm not sure what was at 3:30.
Oh, that's what yeah, okay. All right. So there was a disconnect there. All right. I asked a couple questions, typing them in, but the first one was answered by your staff. The second one was not. So I'm assuming that's why you put me on the list. And I don't know the restrictions of how much I'm supposed to say, like the company that I want to use or anything like that. Do I have any restrictions with that?
It's completely up to you what you want to disclose.
Okay.
This is being recorded. I will just remind you of that.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I have nothing bad to say. So we have an old softener system, and I had Policy Pump. They're the ones that always come out and check it. And so I had them come out, and they came out, and they'll provide an updated softener, EVR softener, and a carbon block CRS to correct my PFOA of 14.40. Now, my question is, and that's all I have, okay? My question is, that rebate for $5,000, will that cover that system that I just described, even though it's going to cost me $5,300 because everything's going up? Will that cover that softener and carbon tank? Is that acceptable to the state?
Okay, so it will definitely cover the carbon tank. When it comes to the water softener, it depends on your levels of iron and manganese. So if those two compounds are above the secondary maximum contaminant levels, where we start to see them present themselves, they could foul your carbon. And in that case, we would cover the cost of it. So we would really need to see your iron and manganese results to know whether we would cover it or not.
Okay, how do I get that for you?
Did the state test your well, or did you have it tested in some other manner?
You did. The state did.
Okay. Then we probably have your iron and manganese results here. If you want to reach out to me tomorrow, I can look that up for you, and we can discuss whether it would be eligible or not.
Okay, that's great. Now listed here are handouts. I'm green. Well, I'm not green. I'm old. Let's put it that way. And so I don't dare click any of these things, because that's one thing that my daughter says, do not click. And so, but there are things here that I might like. It says the rebate program PDF and the vendors. And I missed all that. So will I be able to get that information?
Yes, so you can click on them tonight if you want to. I put the links in there, so I can guarantee what they go to. But also after this webinar, the platform is going to send out an automatic email about an hour after the webinar ends. And in that email, there's going to be a link to a Dropbox. And in that Dropbox, I'm going to add all the same files. And then as soon as I get the video uploaded, that will be in there as well. So you'll be able to access all the documents that way. But you can also go onto the rebate program webpage, and they're all on there as well.
Okay. All right. Well, even though I came in late on this one, and I don't know why the 3:30 thing happened, it said 3:30 to 6:30, but I'm glad I got in, because some of these questions were informative anyway to me. So thank you guys. You're great. And like I said, this is all new to me, but I am grateful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Wendy Marini, do you have another question?
Yep, third time's a charm. Sorry, I have someone piggybacking off of me through the seminar. So they actually, and just because other people have brought it up with St. Gobain, we were just kind of curious, is this coming from some kind of like emergency federal funding? Is New Hampshire having to pay for this, or are they making St. Gobain pay for this? Like, that was kind of, you know, we've always said they should be paying for all of it, but that's what we were curious, is just kind of where the funding's coming from.
Right. So the funding for the program is actually coming from two different sources. We have some funding from the Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund, as well as from the general fund from the state. So it is all state funding.
No, that's sad to say. They should have to pay for it, but I know. I just appreciate that y'all are trying to help us out. So, all right, that was it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Randall McCauley, do you have another question?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry to keep you guys.
You're fine.
I have a bubble up radon water treatment system already. And I'd like to do the whole house system by using that water treatment system and then feeding the whole house system. My carbon filter would last longer, right?
That is correct, because you're removing the radon before the carbon. So
Okay.
yes, the carbon life would be longer for your PFAS treatment.
Awesome. That's all I needed to know. Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. All right, that is the last person on the list.
That
Yeah.
appears to be all.
All right, I'm going to give one last shout out. If anyone has a question, now is your time to put your name in the question box. While we're waiting on that, I believe Paige would like to say something.
Hi, Amy. Okay, so there's just 3 things I wanted to clarify for people when they read this back. In your PowerPoint, you have active links. Do all of those links match the 4 handouts? Can they get the handouts through the PowerPoint links? Does that cover all the handouts?
It does cover all the handouts, yes.
Okay. Also, folks that are looking for their sampling results that DES has done because they believe they need to attach them to the application need to know that we do not need to send you to the results to attach to your application. Once you click that NHDES was the sampler, it will allow you to not attach the results. Some of that clarification was needed for some folks.
Okay.
And the vendor code, if homeowners for some reason are lucky enough to already have one, they do not need to reapply for a new vendor code. A vendor code is a one and done.
That is correct. All right. Anything else to add, Paige?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm guessing there are no other questions in the question box?
Nope. It looks like that's it.
All right, then I am going to, think I'm going to steal this from you. And I just want to put up one last slide. It has our contact information on it. Let's see. All right. So thank you for attending tonight. We really appreciate you taking out the time to learn about this program and to figure out how to apply and ask your questions. Here is the PFAS rebate program email. We appreciate that maybe that you could email this address rather than individually emailing the rebate team, because in this case, if you email this address, all 4 of us monitor the box. So if one of us is not around, we can still address your questions and your concerns in a rapid manner. But if you want to contact me directly, my contact information is here. Feel free to email or call me with any additional questions. With that, we are going to end the webinar for tonight. Again, we thank you for your time, and I thank Jeff and Andy for joining us to answer questions as well, and for Paige and Josh for giving us some support in the background. All right, everyone have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.